Welcome back, everyone, to Today I Learned Bitcoin. This show, we teach and get taught Bitcoin to help you no matter where you may be on your Bitcoin journey. Today's going to be a really fun episode. My co host Jason actually invited one of his buddies to come talk Bitcoin with us. He is just kind of starting to get curious about it, had some questions that he wanted to bring. So, we're going to be teaching him about Bitcoin, just kind of diving into, where he's at, what got him interested, things like that, which you will most likely relate to. If you haven't bought Bitcoin yet yourself, this will be a really great episode for you. So let's dive right into it. I'll bring up Jason. What up, man? How are you today?
Sup, dude? Great to be here. Great day.
Good to see you. Always love shooting another show. Yeah, you got some words to share about Tyler before we bring him on?
Oh, dude, I have so many words to share about Tyler, but I will say this. Tyler is a great guy. He's a great friend of mine. We spent a few years working together. That's where we met doing sales. And we were actually just hanging out, I think, a couple months back, and I was kind of giving him my Bitcoin spiel and getting into things, and he had some really interesting questions for me. And I was thinking about those questions more recently since we started ramping up the show, and I was like, fuck it, dude. Like, let's bring them on. Let's get some of these questions out there because I think they're great. I think they're awesome questions that probably a lot of folks who are not super familiar in the Bitcoin space have, and we'd love to kind of address those things head on. So let's do it, man.
Beautiful. Let's bring him on. What's up, Tyler? Thanks for
Hey,
joining
how's it
us.
going? What's up, guys? Appreciate you having me.
Great to see you, boss.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious, first of all, Tyler, is it just because Jason started talking to you, or when was kind of like the first time you had heard about Bitcoin? Pretty recent, or has it been a while?
It's been a while. When Bitcoin originally kind of like took off, like when it got, when it kind of became part of the zeitgeist, and everybody was talking about it and kind of trying to get rich off of it. You'd hear stories about people making a bunch of money, and your homie would come up and be like, "I just downloaded this app," and that's I want to say it was like 2017 or so, maybe. I
Okay.
heard
Sounds
about
right.
it,
Yeah.
and yeah, and in case my first like thought about Bitcoin, okay, a digital currency, interesting, cool, weird. What do I do with it? Like, what am I going to use this for? Can I take this to Walgreens and get deodorant? Can I buy food with this? Like, what practical application does this have? And so that was kind of my thought process at the time when I first heard about it. Why does this matter to me?
Cool. Well, hopefully we'll help answer some of that for you today. The 2017 time period was super interesting. I think that's when it really like sunk into the mainstream of people. Everyone talked about it like over Thanksgiving dinner because it was hitting, all time. I think it touched $20,000 roughly, kind of in that like winter 2017 range. So I would say you're on board with most people, probably around that same time frame. I mean, at this point, you haven't gone out like purchased any Bitcoin at this point, right?
Nope, no Bitcoin purchases. In fact, I'm not even a retail investor. I don't have anything invested at all. I've seen The Big Short with Steve
Mm.
Carell, and that is about the extent of my financial literacy.
It's a great movie. It's a great
It's a
one,
great
though.
movie.
Yeah, yeah. I would say, man, the 2017 was an interesting time. That's what drew me in for sure. That was when I first started making my first purchases. My first purchase was not Bitcoin; it was Ethereum. Right, but and then I eventually got into that. I got into Litecoin. I got into Bitcoin, of course. I
You
didn't
bought
have
some
a
Doge too, didn't you? I bet you bought some Doge, you
no,
piece of
no. I
shit.
don't think I don't think Doge was I don't think Doge was there yet. But yeah, I opened my Coinbase account. At the time there was Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, I think was like the third or fourth one that they put on their platform. And I was just like, "Oh, cool, this one's cheap." Like Litecoin's like $20 a coin. I'm like, "This one's cheap, so it's probably got like the most growth potential." And like that was my strategy. And I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, but I knew that people were out there making money. I saw it, touch tips with 20,000, and at that point, like the whole world was going crazy. The whole internet was going crazy. There were memes about people getting rich and buying Lambos off of Bitcoin. And what's funny about that is it's sitting at 30,000 right now, just a touch over that. And earlier this year, or maybe the end of last year, when it was kind of in that same like 20,000 range, the narrative was Bitcoin is dead because it had fallen from the more recent high of 70,000 per coin in 2021. So that type of thing's just interesting to me, is that perspective and the way the public handles like those dollar values and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably something we can get into a bit if you have any question around like price volatility, Tyler. There's definitely like some mechanics within Bitcoin that causes this sharp increase and sharp fall, as any free market does when it's brand new. But I thought it was super cool that you mentioned The Big Short, the 2008 financial crisis that movie is based about is actually what kind of sparked my mind just went blank on the word, but it
It's the
inspired
full reason for
the
Bitcoin.
founder. Yeah, that the
Yeah.
reason why Bitcoin was discovered or created is because this anonymous person labeled Satoshi Nakamoto, excuse me, wanted to basically find a solution where money couldn't be created for free. Like all the banks started getting bailed out because they failed. They were doing sketchy crap, and they just got saved by the government. Right? They did all these bad loans and hurt a lot of people, but they got saved, and all the actual people that were affected did not. So it just is a very, very unfair system that we operate in, and Bitcoin just provides really true fairness. So
And if you if you stop like right there, I mean, you take it kind of an emotional inventory, that should make you angry, right? Like I remember watching that movie being pissed off, like, oh, they just they just get a get out of jail free card and that's it, and all these people lost their homes and shit and their livelihoods. So, right, you kind of, I don't know, for me, it kind of starts there as sort of the emotional crux for what would motivate someone like me, just your average fucking Joe, to get into Bitcoin is because the way it was kind of explained to me is being sort of reactionary to that sort of situation. So what, in our kind of initial conversations about this, I couldn't really give a shit about Bitcoin. I've never had money to invest in anything. So investing is a word that just didn't apply to me, right? So hearing I guess the principles behind Bitcoin. So I guess what is the principle behind Bitcoin? Like what sort of kickstarted the development of it?
I mean, there was quite a few different attempts at digital currencies prior to Bitcoin. A lot of people think, "Oh, Bitcoin is the first one." No, there were attempts. Bitcoin was actually just the first one that actually worked. The whole idea was, how can we create a internet native money that cannot be controlled by any single individual or group, right? So there's no governments to bail it out. There's no one that can change something, create more of it, right? It really was like sought out to be a system that once it was released, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. It's kind of similar to like something like you could say the Bible, right? It's just an idea. You could burn every freaking book out there in the world, and it's still going to exist in people's brain. Bitcoin's, a very similar function to that. But yeah, it's really just to kind of create first a money that applies for the future, right? The internet came out, so we needed a good money that couldn't be manipulated and controlled, because with the internet, when money became digital, the US dollar got really digitized around that time as well. It got so much easier to manipulate. They could just add a zero on their freaking computer screen, and then there's another $1 billion.
I think to jump in, like I think the very short answer to your question, Tyler, is decentralization, trustlessness, and self-sovereignty. Like that is the point of Bitcoin, if you want to put it in one sentence, right? So decentralization, like there is no small governing body, which is what we have today, right? Like the Federal Reserve is literally like 12 old dudes. That's not totally factual, but I'm being a little hyperbolic. But it's a small group of people that literally manages the world's reserve currency, dude. Like it's crazy, right? And so yes, like 2008, right? When banks are all going under and there's this huge crisis, like of course the banks are going to be okay. The Federal Reserve is going to add liquidity, which means printing money, and they're going to go get those banks taken care of. And the banks in turn are going to go prop up large corporations and the stock market. And that's where most of the money that gets like printed goes to. And it takes a very, very long time to get to you, if it does, right? It takes a very long time to get to me and Alec, and in like we saw this again in the COVID crisis, but at a way bigger scale than 2008. Like, dude, in the course of a few weeks, trillions of dollars were created out of thin air. And you saw the stock market. I had a visual for that. It's in our first episode, which you watched, Tyler. But it's Jim Cramer, the CNBC guy. Alec knows what I'm talking about. And he's on his show, and this is the guy who like he rants, he talks money, right? He talks about the stocks. And it's in 2020, and the stock market's like having a record bounce back. And literally the news banner underneath in the same screen is like something like X number of millions of people without jobs in America right now. And it's on the same fucking screen. So that is the priority of the Federal Reserve is save these large institutions first. And then you get your stimmy check for $1,000 or some shit later on. And you feel good about that, right? But rant, that's what's up, right? It's so centralized. It's the decision making of a small group of people. Bitcoin does not have that, right? The world could go into utter and complete crisis outside my window right now, and we could not go create a bunch more Bitcoin to solve that problem. Businesses that are not set up well will fail, and businesses that are set up well will succeed, and that's a truly free market, right? And you don't get up to go to work every day to earn this type of currency that this small governing body can simply go create for free, right? Bitcoin isn't about that. Bitcoin is like you put in the effort, you're able to earn it. And that's done through Bitcoin mining. And that's a whole nother rant to get into. But
I had a question for you, Tyler, unless you have a question before I ask you one.
I got plenty, but please lay it on me.
I was curious. I always like to understand like people's view of money in general. Like, have you ever done any research or anything into what money actually is, or do you have a definition of what money means to you?
Not necessarily. Only, I haven't done any real research on it, but as far as my understanding of currency goes, any kind of currency used for like transactions, any business, anything like that, it has a mutually agreed upon value. It only has value because we say it has value, right? Obviously, there's more, it's more complicated than that. But if everybody decided tomorrow nobody wanted to use the US dollar, it would have no value and therefore it's not a valid currency, right? And I know there's like, scarcity, things like that influence the value of a currency. But to my understanding, at the end of the day, it's a mutual consensus. We all decide this has value and therefore we can trade with it, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to describe a fiat currencies. When you look at things like gold was kind of a standard prior to what we call fiat money now, right? And there was a supply and demand. Wow, I'm tripping up my words today. Dynamic to it where it costs to produce, right? So when money doesn't cost anything to produce, it is just kind of collective idea value based. So yeah, that's a really good way to describe it. And one way to maybe tie this together for you is like, so gold is really hard to create, right? It costs a lot of money to pull it out of the ground. And then fiat money, the US dollar, can be moved really easy. We have Cash App and Venmo and credit cards that just send money and we don't have to think about it, right? Bitcoin kind of takes these two things and puts them together, where Bitcoin's really, really expensive to generate. There is only a set amount. That's one difference it has from gold. So you can always kind of go pull more gold out of the ground. There's probably some in the ocean. There's probably some in space on asteroids, all that crap, right? There's only 21 million Bitcoin. and then it can be transmitted super easily. I can use an app, send it to you, just like a fiat currency. So that's really what makes it, the best money that's been discovered so far. Yeah, I always just love to hear kind of what people think of money, because sometimes it's just like, I don't know, that's what my paycheck, and I use it to buy stuff. Yeah, but have you ever thought about it deeper? I'm always curious, kind of people's opinions around that. But yeah, go ahead and hit us with another question, unless Jason's got a thought on that.
I just wanted to add that you touched on scarcity, right? And like that is a huge component to money and to value, and it always has been. And that's what made for such a long time gold such a good use case for money, is that it's scarce and people found value in that. Obviously it's very like not portable, right? And so physically it has limitations, and
and
that's
and
what
it's
that
it's shiny.
and it's
Gold.
shiny.
It's shiny.
Yes, it
People
is
like shiny
shiny.
things.
It is. But I think like looking at that and looking at Bitcoin, you have gold that is like it's very rare and it's hard to get more of, like Alex said. And one of the things I think you and I talked about before that maybe you hadn't known was that Bitcoin not only has a finite supply, meaning it will never surpass X number of coins, and that number is 21 million, but that it's also released at a very regular rate, a completely controlled rate, and that every 4 years the amount that's released is cut in half. So it's literally mathematically engineered to become more and more scarce. We have a really cool visual we pulled up in our last episode we did. I think if we still have that on deck, maybe we can pull that up later, that just kind of shows how that keeps continually getting cut in half. But dude, like in a matter of a couple decades from now, the amount of Bitcoin that is issued on a regular basis is going to be just a tiny fraction of what it is today. And so and then it will eventually cease. And that'll happen about 100 years from now. And we'll all be there for it. And we're all going to party our asses off. But then it's it, dude. So like, if you own one Bitcoin at that time, you own 1 out of 21 million in existence. And there's never that number's never going to be inflated. Like you own 1/21 millionth of the money supply. So
Okay,
it's
so
so
let me, if I can. So on that note, right? So just a clarifying question: there are 0 other electronic currencies that have like a finite amount like that have a cutoff. Bitcoin's the only one, right?
There are, but the discovery of digital scarcity, holy crap, I cannot talk today, can really only be done once. Because if you create something else that also has that finite amount, you can create more and more and more, and there's no real value to that. I mean, it has that same thing as fiat money, where if you think it has value, it can have value, but there's a few different like dynamics that go into it. Just having the set supply is one piece. So there are some others out there. I'm not the crypto expert. I'm a Bitcoin expert. So let's get that straight. But I know there are a few out there that have set supplies, at least initially programmed, but they are controlled and programmed by people, foundations, organizations that could ultimately change that if they wanted to.
yeah.
Okay, I see. So the value, so the reason that Bitcoin kind of stands out is not only because there's a finite amount, but also because no one no one has the keys to the kingdom.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
and if I may touch on something you said earlier, Alec, you kind of like you might have mentioned this kind of offhand. Is the creator of Bitcoin anonymous?
Yeah. Nobody knows who they are.
Like really?
It's honestly like I call it like the 10th wonder of the world, because it's absolutely fascinating. Like if you dive into the rabbit hole of Satoshi Nakamoto, like so many people came up with theories of who it may be. No one has admitted it. No one, like, it was a person on a forum that shared this thing, a super nerdy like cryptography forum, right? And he just drops this white paper. He's like, here you guys go. I made Bitcoin. Check this out. Run it. He started running it himself. Others on the forum started running it. And then he was like, all right, guys, it's in your hands. Peace out. And then he dropped
Yeah.
off the face of the earth.
Yep.
But that I mean, the fact that you just think about the nature of human beings, the fact that this guy hasn't come out and been like, "I made Bitcoin," or maybe he has and nobody believed him. I don't know. This makes this guy basically Batman. Like, you think of the amount of personal integrity and adherence to your own values that you have to just say, "I made this thing. I don't care. Here's what it does. Do with it what you will." I did
Totally.
not
The
know that.
crazier part of this. So Satoshi was the first person to mine Bitcoin, right? He was getting 50 Bitcoin a block, and it was super easy. You could just run it on a 2008 laptop, so not a super strong
Calculator.
computer. And the initial wallet these coins were going into, there's 1 million Bitcoin sitting there that has never been touched. Think about how much money that is. That's hundreds of billions of dollars that has never been touched or moved since its inception.
So wait, so let me clarify. So there's approximately 1 million Bitcoin sitting in this wallet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the finite supply of Bitcoin is 21 million. So effectively there's only 20 million
20.
Bitcoin circulating, or will be eventually circulating the market.
There's probably 3 or 4 million Bitcoin that are considered dead Bitcoin that just excuse me, haven't been moved in years and years. So there's somewhere on a hard drive. They're in a fucking landfill or something. Satoshis are included in that. Not that his are
Yeah.
in a landfill necessarily.
Just like
but
how before the show I was trying to log into one of my wallets and couldn't remember my password. That
Yeah.
happened to a lot of people with a lot of
oh, he
Bitcoin.
admits it on the show. Look at that.
Write down your keys and your password, folks. Come on.
Come
Dude,
on.
this is like this is a 21st century treasure hunt, dude. I was watching a YouTube video the other day about all these people who died going to look for buried treasure. And now it's going to be like, oh, I was digging in this landfill looking for this SSD from 2013. All
No,
my
seriously.
Bitcoin on it.
There were news stories like that happening in 2017 when like that you saw that run to like $20,000 and people realized, holy shit, I had like thousands of Bitcoin on that drive that at the time was worth a fraction of a fucking penny. Like who cares? And they were asking permission to go through landfills and like not getting that permission. Like, no,
Hey,
dude,
can you
it's gone.
imagine? Can you imagine one of your friends all of a sudden one day he just buys like a mansion in Malibu or something? And you're like, dude, where did you get this money? Oh, I
Found my hard
old
drive.
It was in my closet.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, man, that's a super cool part of it is like what type of human, if they had access to this, like who's going to be able to resist at least pulling a few coins out, That's why I think like the story of Satoshi is so freaking cool. Like whoever this person, group, entity was that provided this to the world, it's the most selfless act probably ever. They dropped this thing and did not use it for their own personal monetary gain.
Or
You
take
know,
credit.
maybe they did afterward and just, left that wallet aside because they didn't want to, take advantage or cheat the system that they created. Who knows? There has been people that have come out and said, "Hey, I'm Satoshi." There's actually a guy, I won't say his name because he actually sues a lot of people for defamation and crap, but he has been unable to prove that he is Satoshi and or able to prove that he knows much about how Bitcoin works. So it's pretty funny if you ever want to look into that. I think
We
it's
should
hilarious.
we should also note that it could be like a small group of people as well. It could be
Who
we
knows?
just don't know. Yeah, it's just a pseudonym. Satoshi Nakamoto.
Could be dead.
Could
Who
be
knows?
dead. Yeah, could be Steve Jobs. It's Steve Jobs. No, good stuff, dude. So Tyler, when we were hanging out, man, I remember you had some questions about like the physical makeup of Bitcoin, like how does Bitcoin exist? What physically is it? Do you have any of that stuff like jotted down? Do you remember that? Kind of talking through that a little bit?
Yeah, I do. So I guess like it's still, even to this day, it's hard for me to kind of wrap my head around like how a digital currency can exist with any kind of integrity, right? Because in the you think about the digital world, things are always getting hacked, and something only exists if there's an electronic component to generate it or say that it exists, or a one or a zero pops up on the screen or whatever. So something as valuable as Bitcoin, how can that exist in like a real palpable sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's really in the decentralized nature, and that's a really like popular buzzword. So to break it down, it's I'll use the Bible reference once again, right? All three of us have a copy of this thing. If you know, want to take mine and like write some different words in it and like try to make me believe something else, like you could do that to mine, but it's not going to change Jason's. It's not going to change anyone else's copy of that in the world. So I would then have to go out and convince everyone, you know, hey, the one I'm running is right that you modified, right? So it's kind of in that same aspect where if there are thousands and thousands of computers running Bitcoin, they're all validating what Bitcoin actually is. So if someone is able to infiltrate one, you know, they would literally have to convince every single computer across the entire globe running Bitcoin of this change or this exploit that they did, right? Plenty of people have tried to hack Bitcoin, and it's just not possible because you can't control what every computer in the entire world thinks, right? So that is kind of one of the amazing aspects to it. Like no matter what you try to do, you can't change it. You have to convince people to change it.
To kind of expand a little on that, Tyler, like Bitcoin is a software protocol, right? Meaning it's if you run the Bitcoin network, if your computer is running Bitcoin, it's running a specific, extremely mathematically specific set of rules. Okay. And at this point in time, there are millions of computers all over the world doing this, or maybe hundreds of thousands. I don't know. It's like a huge, huge number. If I decide to go alter, and anybody can go alter the software, it's fully open source. Anyone can do it. I can go do that on my computer. I can collude with Alec and say, Alec, hey, dude, let's go modify our software.
That's literally what Litecoin is. They copied Bitcoin and modified it. That's what these other coins were initially.
And I could get a group of people to do that, right? Maybe I get 20 people to do that. Maybe I get 100 people to do that. And we all alter the software in the exact same way. We change a few lines of code, and it means fuck all to the Bitcoin network because there's hundreds of thousands of other computers in the world globally who are saying, oh, okay, cool. That's cool. Nice software. That's not Bitcoin, right? So if you want to go generate some kind of a currency coin off of that software protocol, you could fuck off and go over there and do it and call it whatever you'd like. And this has happened. It happened in 2017, and it's called a hard fork when that happens. Basically, a group of people running the Bitcoin software got together and came to an agreement or consensus among themselves in this smaller group and said, you know, we love Bitcoin, but we think it should be this instead of what it is. We think making this change will improve it. And they went and did that, and something called Bitcoin Cash was born off of that. Okay. And I don't want to get too into the weeds off of that, but Bitcoin Cash is it's a failed project. It is. No. It never gained any traction. You can still go buy it. There are people who still live and die by it on Bitcoin Twitter. I fight with them sometimes when I can't sleep. And but the point is, it's not Bitcoin, and it will never be recognized as it. Okay, so in the early days, in 2009, 2010, right, when Bitcoin, the network was maybe 100 people or this like very small group, it would have been very susceptible to something like that. But it endured through that. And it continues to only grow. More and more people join the network each day. Alec runs a Bitcoin node or a computer that runs the software. I'm soon going to join that club. And it just continues to grow. And that's why, like, there is no altering it, right? So in Alec's example of the Bible, like, how many millions of Bibles are around in churches and in people's homes? You could go change a few pages of the Bible and say, no, this is what Jesus said. But everybody knows it's not right.
For your example, like, there's different, like, offshoots of, like, Christianity, right? Like, there have been groups of people that agree this version of the Bible is better than this one. Right, it's the same type of thing, but underlying, like, the mass majority of people believe in the original Bible, right? So
I did not expect this to go in this direction.
I heard this analogy like a couple weeks ago, and I just loved it. I was like, "That's such an easy way to get people to understand."
makes really good sense when you explain it like that. So then in that regard, then basically what you're kind of alluding to is that there's some kind of like running ledger, right? That sort of exists in the background or somewhere that sort of cross checks or validates, to use your word, the data, the value of Bitcoin, or who has what. Is that like where the blockchain
That
comes
Tyler's
into
is
done his
things?
homework.
that's
Tyler's done his
exactly
homework.
what the Bitcoin software is, a blockchain. It's a ledger, right? So the blocks are just transaction data, right? And
Okay.
everyone running this, my computer sitting over here sees the blocks coming through, sees all the transactions coming through, and it can validate the ones I do. I can look up my own transactions and see them, on the chain. I don't know if you watched our episode on mempool, but that like physically allows you to see the blockchain. You can look up your own transactions. It's stamped into history. Like, it's
Interesting.
often referred to as like a time chain because it's timestamp in this thing and it will never change. Right.
Okay, so let's follow this through to its logical conclusion here. The blockchain is like a ledger of all the transactions. The blockchain is data, and data, from what I understand, has to exist somewhere on a data server in order to be stored, right? So, where does that data live physically, I guess, if that's
It'll
even a thing?
lives right
In
on my
everybody's
desk
node.
here. My little
Yeah.
Raspberry Pi that I'm running. I
Yeah.
got a
It,
hard
it
drive
lives.
hooked up to it. The Bitcoin blockchain it sits right under a gigabyte right now.
Under a
Obviously,
gigabyte?
uh-huh. There's a limit to, I'm sorry, it's under a terabyte. My bad.
Okay, still, that's impressive.
It is under 1 terabyte still. I want to say 600 and something gigabytes, something around there, but it took a few days for me to download it, right? So it is quite large, but still something that individuals can run. It doesn't require like a whole like AWS server, right?
Okay,
I just run it on
sorry to
Raspberry Pi.
sorry to interrupt you, but I guess I'm kind of making a connection here. So, in order to run Bitcoin software on your device, do you have to download the entire blockchain?
You don't have to. Ideally, to verify that it is truly Bitcoin, that's the best way.
It's the
But
So, you're
best way.
downloading this ledger of all these transactions, all 600 something gigabytes of it.
yeah,
Oh, and
you can
that's
do what's
why.
called a pruned node as well, where you're just downloading like the most recent, the past year or two, like it's measured in block time. But yeah, you can just do a portion. Like, I only want to store 10 gigabytes of the most recent blockchain data. You can do that.
Yeah, and I actually just barely listened to Guy Swan's episode on nodes, so this conversation fits in perfect. Really, really good. So Tyler, like imagine in this ledger, just for simplicity, imagine the ledger is like 1 + 1 = 2, right? And that's one transaction. And it keeps growing. Now it's 1 + 1 + 2 = 4, right? And maybe that number just continues to grow and grow. And that's the running tally. That's the running ledger that if you run what's called a full node, you are running the entire ledger from the beginning of Bitcoin. Now, here's the difference, right? Here's a pruned ledger, which Alec just brought up, that takes significantly less, I guess, memory and a
Takes
smaller
up less
hard drive,
space.
a lot less space. Let's say like we have 1 + 1 + 4 + 10, and now we're at like what is that, 16? The prune node is just going to take the 16 and start there, right? Rather than
Gotcha.
everything that came before it.
So, this is like a
It's still
snapshot.
correct. It's still correct. Yes, it's a snapshot. It's still correct, but it doesn't have the entire history before it. And the reason there's limitations there is, all the nodes were kind of like they're working independently, but you know what? I'm gonna hit pause there. I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but that's the difference between a full node that has the entire 1 + 1 + 2 + whatever, and just the 16,
Yeah.
right?
I think the most important point here is that it's cheap to run. Like, an individual person can run it. And that's one of the main differences between Bitcoin and any other like digital money, right? If you look at something like Ethereum, you got to run like some fat servers to run that crap. the US dollar, right? I don't know how they're running that, but you're not individually watching that ledger, right? So I've got my own little computer that just sits here on my desk that is watching to make sure, my transactions are legit, and, helping to make sure all the transactions on the network are legit. I've got my own copy of it here myself, and there's thousands and thousands of others that do as well.
And that's what it
Okay,
means to be
interesting.
a network, a network participant. And I think that, Tyler, that may get confused with like Bitcoin mining. It's not the same thing at all. Like, this is not energy intent. It's just a computer. It's just a
Yeah.
computer, just like the one I'm sitting in front of right now. And that makes you one of the thousands globally that watches the Bitcoin network and verifies and validates what's correct and what isn't. There's Alec
Oh,
holding
so
it
you're
up.
almost
Like,
like volunteering to like be like a supervisor of the like network.
yeah,
Basically,
yeah.
Interesting.
I
Okay.
want to make sure my
I
own transactions are legit. So I hook this up. So my wallet software interfaces with this. So it actually watches my transactions directly. That's
oh,
kind of
that's
the
cool.
the reason why you want to run your own, is so you can make sure no one's ripping you off with a transaction. It just makes you not have to trust anything. That's a big theme behind Bitcoin, is like, don't trust, verify. It allows you to verify everything and trust no one.
Makes
Trustlessness.
sense.
That was one of the words, trustlessness. Yeah, man. It's really cool. So,
If I may, that's awesome, dude. I didn't know any of that. That was dope. I want to pivot. There's a big question that's been on my mind since the last time we talked, and I wanted to ask and see kind of what your take on this was. And this is not me like not trying to shoot holes in anything. I'm genuinely curious, right? So take the idea of a decentralized currency. No one is steering the ship, right? Well, the course has already been decided. The ship's on this course. It's not deviating from that course, right? What then? Let's say the entire world adopted a currency like that, or the United States. Let's say the United States adopted a totally decentralized currency like that. What then happens in situations like a crisis like COVID, where things get out of whack, out of balance? There's some weird extenuating circumstances going on. What sort of like how do we help people?
some businesses fail and then some don't. And it's a truly free, unregulated market. Like, if we had an earthquake right now, a lot of wildlife would be destroyed and some would prevail and some would naturally, well, all of it would naturally regrow over time, right? It allows the ecosystem of the economy to be unmanaged and truly a free capitalistic market, because what we have now is not that. And you hear a lot of like anti-capitalism rhetoric, especially in our generation. But what it really is it's anti the management of what we're labeling as capitalism, but it's not. We don't live in a free market.
It's
Yeah,
almost
I
like
mean,
economic Darwinism.
it kind of. So if you think about it, where, yeah, you can have whatever opinions you want on, what happened during the pandemic, shutting down the economy and all that. What it requires is consensus. So if they wanted to shut down the economy and didn't have a money printer, and they wanted to help people, you would have to do it through taxation or donation, right? People would have to volunteer to help others and close down businesses. It's very similar to war. Like, if the government wants to go to war with another country, they don't ask for taxes or people to pay in. They print money to do it, right? So it takes away that ability for just a central controlled government to make decisions that the population doesn't necessarily agree with. Now,
Oh,
Bitcoin can live alongside other currencies, and it will. You know, if they want to continue printing US dollars, it's just going to, just like home prices and things like that. The more money that they print, like, people aren't going to want to hold dollars in a bank account because it purchases less and less. You'll want to store your value in something like Bitcoin, gold, real estate, as people have for so long, right? So that's kind of the thing. Like, I don't know if a government would completely give up their ability of running with like their own currency. That's kind of going to be like the experiment that goes from here on out, but there have been countries that have adopted Bitcoin that do label it as legal tender, like El Salvador. I don't know too much of the political aspect of it, but like Jason mentioned, it's a free market tool. So yeah, they can't create more of it. They're going to, if Bitcoin was the only money on the entire planet, it would take the entire planet's consensus to make any change to it. Like, I don't know. I just think if you took a vote on whether the government should have shut down the economy or not, like what would have been that outcome?
Okay,
Right now they don't need that. They just do it.
so
Right?
I'm kind of gathering that like the idea of like using an entirely decentralized currency is like not like the greatest example, because it seems like that's like unrealistic. That would almost never happen, right? In the world we live in.
I mean, right now it's not, right? It would give up all control, which governments don't like to do,
Like to do.
right? They're not gonna want to personally say, "All right, we're gonna give up all of our money printing ability," because that's gonna put them at a disadvantage, right? And I don't necessarily know if that's good or not, but there was another point I was gonna get at, but I lost it. Does that
Um,
answer your question?
yeah. So what the kind of idea I'm getting here is like, okay, we go back to that example. If let's say for me, right, average guy, I was living in an apartment at that time. If I hadn't gotten a STEMI check or unemployment or whatever, because I lost my job. If I hadn't gotten unemployment checks or the STEMI checks, I wouldn't have been able to pay my rent. How do you help somebody like that? Okay, option A is you just put a zero
Yep.
in their bank account, right? That creates more of whatever currency you're using. Or if you had a decentralized currency that you couldn't make more of out of thin air, you would have to then either tax people to gather that finite amount of money and then redistribute it, or have people voluntarily give that finite. You have to take something from here and put it over here. So something would have to be lost over here and over there. But either way, it's the same thing, more or less, because if you just generate an extra zero in somebody's bank account or mail them a check like they did, then your currency over time becomes worth less. So it's sort of like it's coming out of your pocket either way.
The aha moment.
Not only out of your pocket, Tyler, everyone's pocket,
Everyone's
the
pocket.
entire world, because the US dollar is the world reserve currency. So other currencies are based on our money as well. So not only are you paying 10 times the amount for your $1,000 stimmy check, but someone in like fucking Uganda is getting screwed over by the money you got in your bank account too. That's
Ah,
that's the gnarly part of it is we're
that
prospering. Like America's great because we got the world reserve currency. Go look at fucking Lebanon. Go look at Argentina. Like their inflation is so like thousands of percent, dude. Like they're completely wrecked. But we're sitting
Yep.
just pretty.
we're chilling.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Okay,
Wow.
that's a serious connection. That was a big aha moment for me. Okay, that
It's
makes
got me
sense.
it's got me thinking about that rent scenario too. It's like what would could the landlord just forgive it for a month? There's a lot of possibilities. But yeah, in the end, dude, it all evens out, right? Like money, we began this episode by talking about money being closely tied to scarcity, right? If something's going to have value, it needs to be costly to produce. It needs to have an element of scarcity. And if it's cost less to produce and it's very just like, okay, I'm just going to go send 1,000 more of this unit by flipping a switch to every single person in this country, you are going to fucking pay for that later. And guess what? Here we are 3 years later.
Yeah.
We're paying for it. There's no free lunch. There just isn't.
And and I think that.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
please. I think that's what really motivates someone like me to actually give a shit about Bitcoin, right? Because I don't have all this extra money to throw around, invest. I'm not interested in getting rich, right? But when Bitcoin becomes interesting to me is when I go to buy fucking milk, and it's expensive, way more so than in 2019 or 2020. And it's like, hold on a second, what is going on? Like
It's
how do we
Biden.
fight this? Right? This is when it becomes relevant, when I'm like, all
Tyler, do
right,
you
you
own
got
a
my
house?
attention. Nah, I wish.
Right? Like a house. I'm pretty sure the house value the house I bought it in like 2019, but probably even just a couple years before that. It was maybe 150 to 200 grand. Freaking thing values. I don't know. People are selling their houses nearby me for well over 400 now, right? So, like, it's really about the incentives. Like, there's not an incentive to shut down the economy or go to war if you can't print money. That's really the big issue with money printing and fiat currencies is it just completely messes up the incentives behind business and transactions and how we interact just as people, where if it is something you can't change, like it's value for value. Like I'm only going to make an action if it generates value, right? If there's this, sickness that is going to ruin my business, I'm going to take an action to not ruin my business instead of a government saying, hey, you have to do this because we think this is best for you, right? It puts the responsibility in the each person to decide what's valuable to them, how they want to spend their time, how they want to use their resources to help themselves, to help others. It's putting that back into people's hands versus someone at the top having that decision.
And I'm going to say this. I'm going to say money printing is very closely married to war in that you imagine a reality where if you want to go to war, if you want to wage war on another country, you have to generate the revenue to do that through taxation. How fucking popular are you going to be? If you suddenly
Look at the
get on
Ukraine shit right now. Like, if they took a vote on all the money they were sending over there, do you think anyone would vote for that? Like, come
right.
on.
So I'm the leader of this country and I decide like, man, I don't like these guys over here. They're screwing around. I want to go to war with them. I want to kill them. And so you guys, my fellow citizens who elected me, I need you all to give me $1,000 right now today so we can go do that. No, instead, you're going to be incentivized to hang back and go, yeah, of course, if somebody attacks me, I'm going to defend my people and my nation. And so we're armed and ready, but I'm not going to go pick fights. I'm not going to go pick fights because that's very costly. And my citizens, it's costly to all of us, to the collective. That is not what we have today. What we have today is we want to go buy a shitload of heavy artillery and have the most robust military in the world. So we're going to go create dollars and go do that.
It's
and
the
then
slow
we're going to
knife.
be the aggressors. Like, dude, that is why you ask, like, well, why are they printing money? Just to have control, to be the big machine, like all the bro shit, all the conspiracy shit, right? No, it's war. It's war. It's largely tied to war. And all the grocery stuff and the gas stuff and everything else is just a downstream effect of that. And Bitcoin is part of that. And Alec's house is part of that too, because you can't just go create these things out of nowhere like you can with the US dollar. So while you have the dollar supply just kind of going like this and these things staying stagnant, their value in terms of the US dollar goes up. Your loaf of bread went from $1.49 to $3.49. And Bitcoin has gone from being $1,000, $1,200 in 2017 to now being $30,000. And it's like, okay, that's not crazy high. But when that happened in 2017 or 2020, whenever it first hit 30K, everybody shit their collective pants. And that itself, the Bitcoin price going up, yeah, more people are buying Bitcoin and trading Bitcoin, but a lot of it's just in terms of the US dollar. There's so much more fucking US dollar out there that the price of everything is inflated and Bitcoin's wrapped into that. Right?
Tyler, this really is so much deeper. Like, I don't want to get conspiratorial, but when you start following the money and the incentives, like, you'll start to understand why things are structured the way they are, and it just makes you want to get out of it. Like, that's the sole reason why I'm in Bitcoin, because I don't want to support these things. I don't want to be a part of what they're really doing with money. It's an option to just say no thanks, I'm going to choose this instead. It's an option to completely operate on a separate system.
That's what appeals to me, right? Is the principle of the thing, the almost the morality of it. I mean, in a sense, right? Because you're saying, so the idea is, right, it's rather than like, okay, we're going to take money from you to go fund a war, we could just print some more money and go buy it kind of behind your back, almost, for lack of a better word, and then you
Yeah.
feel the effects later on when your dollar is worth less, rather than just taking it physically out of your bank account. And so to sort of step away from that's like an appealing that's a good value proposition to me, because fuck you. Don't touch my money, dude. That's fucked up.
Dude, inflation
Yeah.
is theft. It is
It
theft. They
is.
are straight stealing from every single person on the planet to do whatever it is they want to do. That's all.
It,
When money is created for free, it's stealing from every single other person on the planet. Bottom line.
yeah.
Which is
It's
funny, because like that wasn't a problem 40, 50 years. I mean, maybe it was, but like it wasn't. You had to have a money printer, and you had to physically print the money and send it out places. Whereas now, all you have to do is hit backspace on a keyboard, and or type an extra zero. It's that easy. So I could see why now this is a conversation versus
Yeah.
previously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, it's crazy. And the nature of humans, you brought up the nature of humanity earlier, is to typically self-enrich. And when you have control over money, and let's be honest, you always meet those people that say like, "Oh, I don't care that much about money. It's whatever. I care about quality of life." No, money's your freedom. Money is your quality of life, right? And when you have control over that, humans are going to make more of it willingly. Like they're just going to. They just always will 100% of the time, because it's who humans are.
Using the moral aspect too. Like, Tyler, if you had control of the money supply and you were told you could solve world hunger by making $1 trillion, you could save all these people's lives. Like millions and millions of people that are dying every year, you could save them. All you have to do is add another zero. Like, that's sometimes it is for what's thought of as the greater good, but you're helping these people while stealing from everyone else. It's at the expense of everyone else. And that's really the the messed up thing behind it. Like, how can one person decide what's better for the whole world? Like,
Yeah.
I just don't think that's right for us to have that decision.
You could get really far into the morality aspect, but at the end of the day, yes, it's inflation is theft. It's at the expense of everybody. And one of the biggest reasons it's theft is all three of us, I'm sure I could say this too, like our salaries are not adjusted at the rate of inflation at all. Like not even close. There is a group of people whose salaries are inflation adjusted appropriately, and it's about the top 5 or 10% of people in the world in terms of wealth. Like, so not to use the let that sink in podcast line, but like, fuck, dude, like, so. And in one of our recent episodes, Alec and I busted out an inflation calculator just to show, what a $100,000 salary today meant in purchasing power in relation to, like, what was the year we chose? 2010, I think,
2010.
13 years ago. And it was like $70,000. Like, we've lost 30% of the purchasing power in a 13-year time span. Like, that's staggering. So
But it
it's not the
depends what you
number.
look at too. Houses are 3 times more expensive. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not making 3 times more money to afford the same fucking house. Like, come on.
And Bitcoin is 3 times more expensive.
Full
circle.
It's actually thousands of percent more expensive than 2010, but yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. Since 2010, yes. So and I know we've been going for a minute. This is a good discussion, Tyler. Hopefully this seems like it's washing over you the right way, dude. But I want to touch real quick on kind of a pivot here, but let's talk about crypto. Okay, so let's talk about a very popular crypto, Ethereum. This was my very first purchase on Coinbase in 2017. And there's now at this point, I don't know what the count is. I think there's thousands upon thousands of cryptocurrencies, but none of them run on a protocol the way Bitcoin does. They are all centrally controlled or managed by a team, and they all claim to be decentralized, but they're not, right? No matter how bad they want to be. And so crypto, this is like the bottom line. Crypto is a rebranding and it's a cool rebranding of the fiat monetary system. Bottom fucking line. It straight up is. Like, there is a team of developers, and a clear inventor of Ethereum, for example, I'm picking on them a lot, but it's easy, that could say like, hey, and they did actually within the last year, they totally up and changed their protocol. And there's a lot more technical stuff to go into there, but they changed their entire protocol of how coins are earned. They just said like, we've been doing it this way for X number of years. We're now going to do it this way. Right. And a lot of that involves earning, but also burning tokens to try and control the supply. But it's done at the whim of people, of human beings, not a software protocol that has zero emotion or any kind of like ability to operate on emotion. And that's the second best option to Bitcoin is what you'll hear in the cryptos. There is no second best. That I did the air quotes. Okay. Dogecoin is even fucking worse. Like, holy shit, dude. Like, these meme coins are spun up by bros. And when they're spun up, they're typically like created beforehand. The supply is created. Alec and I wake up tomorrow and we decide we're going to create a cryptocurrency and TIL coin. And we mine 80% of that the night before we drop it, and we keep it. We keep that for Alec and I, 40 for him, 40 for me. Then we drop it and we say it's worth like $20. This is way oversimplified, by the way. We say it's worth $20 a coin and the rest of the public gets the other 20%. Dude, we just got rich. We're fucking rich now. That's what crypto is. It's unregulated fiat. It's fucking worse than fiat, dude.
So theoretically, to your point, someone who wanted to control the supply, everything of Bitcoin would have to buy every goddamn Bitcoin in existence in 100 years once they've all released.
No, if somebody wanted to control the supply, if somebody wanted to control the protocol of Bitcoin,
they would have to control the majority of miners on the network. And
which is
just
physically impossible.
To put that into perspective, it would require like an insanely massive amount of energy, first of all, to run these computers. There's not currently enough computers in the world, so you would have to like massively coordinate the resources, the manufacturing plants to make these computer chips, right? And then so you're going to spend all this time and money doing this while you're not going to really get anywhere. Once again, if you change something that people don't want to follow, you're going to have to convince them to follow along with your new version. So maybe you'll win, a block and control the network for 10 minutes. Like, great, you just wasted an insane amount of time, money, and resources to do that for everyone just to say, that's not Bitcoin, I'm not running that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's literally, it is physically impossible at this point. Again, this could have happened in 2010, maybe, but it can't happen now. I don't like saying anything's too big to fail, but Bitcoin's too big to fail.
It's the biggest computer network in the world.
And the most secure.
Damn.
Like, think about it, dude. If I wanted to go convince 300,000 Bitcoin node runners, like, hey, guys, we're all changing line 3 in the code. Can at least 150,000 of you join me? Like, what? No, nobody, like, there's no physical way to make that happen. There's no incentive to it. Like, the financial incentive dies with that.
Yeah.
I see. So, because if you did modify it, that would go against the core principles of the currency and no one would believe in it anymore.
Exactly.
Yep. And it loses value. And then everybody who's been mining for years and spending millions and millions and millions of dollars on Bitcoin miners and mining facilities, it's all moot. And so nobody's going to stand up and do that because it's idiotic. It's beyond idiotic to do that. So that's why, we say Bitcoin is not crypto. In the literal sense, is it a cryptocurrency? Yeah, but it's not crypto because it's not all this other shit that's just pump and dump schemes. So hopefully, dude, all that lands, it's get away from it. Get away from
dude,
it.
It definitely makes a lot more sense than it did before, even after our previous conversations. I mean, fuck it, you got my vote.
Well, the only
We
way to
closed the
vote
deal.
is to use your dollars, man. Get rid of those things. Throw them in the garbage. Just kidding. Just convert them to Bitcoin.
Light them on
Um,
fire. The revolution's here.
So that actually, another question, something I wanted to like ask, get y'all's input on is, okay, you got me sold. I'm into this whole Bitcoin idea. What is my practical use for Bitcoin? What am I gonna do with it?
You're gonna protect your dollars from melting with it.
So essentially,
That's
use it
all
like
you're
a
gonna
bank
do.
account, like an investment.
Yep.
it's
So
more of like a savings account. I mean, I personally use it as a savings account. I very rarely will use it to purchase things that I find valuable at the time, right? You have to kind of, it puts you in the position where you have to decide that is the future value of my Bitcoin worth more than what I'm about to spend it on, right? So it kind of changes the way you think about spending money. But yeah, I would say it's a great savings account, and you can use it for peer-to-peer transactions. Where if you want to buy something, Jason has this car or whatever it is you want to buy from him, you can send him the money directly. You don't have to deal with the bank, nothing like that. And yeah, you save and spend with it. It's money.
but if I'm selling you my car for $30,000 and that's one Bitcoin, literally today, that's one Bitcoin, and you know that there's the overwhelming likelihood that one Bitcoin in 10 years will be 200 plus $1,000, are you going to spend one Bitcoin on my car? Are you going to hand me $30,000 in USD, which is worth less and less every day? Which actually, another point, man, let's post up, boys. Let's do an all-nighter here. Another point. The US dollar does not incentivize any kind of savings because it's just constantly worth less. And
Yeah,
even
hey,
like,
somebody tell Jane, tell my girlfriend this, because she's like every day, bro. She's like, you need a savings account. I'm like, what am I gonna do
no,
with it?
I mean, the principle is correct. The principle is correct that you should save, and we all had that instilled in us when we were young, is that you should save money in an account, in a don't touch me type of account. The problem is when it goes into that account, at best, maybe it's earning 1% interest. And the target inflation rate is 2%. That's like
2%.
what's good. That's like what's good, right? Or what we're told is good. And it's not what's really happening. So the money in a savings account melts. So now you're like, okay, so how do I make my US dollars like preserve their value? Well, good luck. You have to figure out how to trade stocks now, or you have to find like a good index fund that's going to outperform the inflation. And you might need the help of a money manager if you don't know stocks, because that shit's all very complicated if you want it to be more than gambling. And that is your use for Bitcoin, dude. If you have some money you don't plan on spending, go put it into Bitcoin. And the price will do this when news stories come out. But if you zoom out over time and you look at from 2009 to now, that's all you see.
Yeah.
That's all you're going to see.
I don't want to provide financial advice because I'm definitely not a financial advisor.
Buy Bitcoin.
Buy Bitcoin. I treat it personally just how you would a savings account, right? So if you want to save, say, 10% of your income, right? There are a couple different ways you can go about it. There's companies that make it really easy where it'll automatically draw your money from your bank account, convert it to Bitcoin, and then allow you to send it to your own wallet. So you're custodying, you're being your own bank account, right? So you're not trusting anybody. You're holding this account yourself. But yeah, I would just treat it like that. Whether it's $5 a day, $100 a month, whatever it is. I set, my fiance up on that. She just, wasn't a great saver. So I'm like, just automate it. All the best savers in the world automate it, right? It shouldn't be something you think about. Like, you don't want to have to think about money on a daily basis or investing or any of that crap, right? Like, that's not what most people find enjoyable in life. So you shouldn't have to be a freaking pro stock trader investor, right? You should be able to just save your fucking money and not have it melt. That's simple as that.
Okay. So that's
Yeah.
a good like actionable item for me. Okay. Instead of like transferring money from your MacU checking to your MacU savings, go put it in a big, invest it in a Bitcoin, buy some Bitcoin with it. I like your idea of automating. I'm actually take you up on that. That's actually awesome. So, because like the alternative is, I mean, you could probably find a really safe stock option out there that maybe has like a 2 or 3% annual return or something like that. Something really safe and conservative, whatever. But even though it's unlikely, at the end of the day, if they shoot $3 quadrillion into the USD over the next couple of days, that throws that stock value into
You're
volatility,
not
right?
you're not outpacing it. Yeah, you're not outpacing it.
I mean, the S&P 500 is a very popular one, right? Pretty much every single financial advisor is going to say if you just stick money every month into S&P 500, if you look at the past, 100 years, it's always gone up. And yeah, money printing is going to help increase that price as well. Personally, my bet is that Bitcoin is going to far surpass any savings vehicle instrument we've seen thus far because it has better properties. It beats every single thing to this date, whether it's a stock or a company or it's gold or it's real estate. It has unique properties that nothing else has. So that's why, in my opinion, it's going to provide a greater rate of return than saving my money in the S&P 500. America is going to continue to grow. I believe that, right? But I believe Bitcoin's going to grow much, much more because I think global adoption's at like 0.2%. So a teeny tiny fraction of the globe has adopted Bitcoin. Like,
Yeah.
what happens when it hits 5%, 10%? We're going to be looking at millions of dollars per coin here. Like,
I mean, it's
strongly believe
already far outpacing any other asset. Like right
Yeah.
now, like stupidly outpacing any other asset, and that like gap between Bitcoin and the next thing, the next best one, is like just going to grow. So yes, like I don't want to be super hyperbolic and be like, yeah, all the stocks are shit and like there's no way to preserve your dollars besides this. Like that's not true. This is the best way, I believe, and it's by far going even from just a returns perspective. Like if you're wanting to put some money in there now and then take it out later, this is going to be the best way to grow that. Although ideally, you begin to just treat Bitcoin like its own thing entirely, and it's not viewed as like a means to gain more US dollars. But like Alec pointed out, they will be used in tandem, and this is the best preservation and growth vehicle.
Let me throw you out a scenario, Tyler. That Jason was actually asking me about this. So let's say you saved up some Bitcoin, right? Over the next 10 years, whatever, your Bitcoin's worth. You've got $1 million, worth of Bitcoin. And you want to buy a house. Do you want to sell your Bitcoin even though you think it's going to increase in value more if you hang on to it another 10, 20 years? You want to pass it down to your children, right? Or you can use it very similar to how people use other assets. You can get a loan on it, right? It's an asset. So just like I can pull like a home equity line of credit off my house, there are there are companies willing to give me US dollars, and it's kind of complex the ways that they're structured, but I basically have to prove them I have this Bitcoin and I can't just yank it out from them, but you can get loans in US dollars off your Bitcoin. So you don't have to spend it. I just like, I'm flipping houses, doing all that type of crap. It's the same thing that wealthy asset holders today do with real estate and companies and things like that, right? So it just puts you in that same position. You don't have to be able to have this $1 million building to pull a loan off of. Like all you're doing is saving your $5 a freaking day. Instead of buying coffee, you're buying Bitcoin, and then 10, 20 years from now, you're going to have a really good chunk that you're able to either spend or loan off of.
Stop buying avocado toast and buy Bitcoin. You fucking
Yeah.
millennial.
These
I
goddamn
know. I
millennials,
saw
dude.
I saw you smiling. I saw you smiling when he said the coffee line, and I was like, he's thinking about that.
I know. I
avocado toast.
understand. Like, the idea is like,
But
it's like a cost comparison, sort of, rather than like stop spending your money like an idiot. So I got that. It was just funny, the verbiage. It's so similar.
it is the best thing you can do. I use Swan Bitcoin for that. Alex showed me Swan Bitcoin. I mean, dude, I set it up in 5 minutes. It pulls $10 out each day. Like that's Chipotle, whatever. And that's how I save Bitcoin. And Alec said recently, what was it? If you bought at the top, so the top value Bitcoin has ever been in 2021 was $70,000. And if you bought $10 a day, which is called, by the way, it's called dollar cost averaging, this act, saving small chunks every day. If you DCA'd every single day from the top to today, so May 2021 or whatever it was when it hit 70K, all the way down to like whatever values it later dropped to the 30K it's currently at, you would still be up. You would be in the green. So it is a very safe way to buy Bitcoin. This isn't about like, oh shit, I need to put $500 in at a time, and like, what if it drops tomorrow and then like my $500 is now $450 because the Bitcoin price dropped. No, dude, set it and forget it. Set it and forget it. And then when you see price dips happen, when a news story about crypto regulation or some shit comes out, which happens all the time, naturally people are going to sell some Bitcoin, right? Because that's what the media does. It puts a little fear out there and the price will drop. And then you can make a decision of like, okay, this looks like a nice little dip. I'm going to go make a bigger buy today and take advantage of this dip. I'm not going to touch my DCA though. And that's how I operate now. So Swan, Bitcoin, dude, $10 a day.
I'll be one to admit, I've bought Bitcoin from 30,000 up to 70,000, down to 15,000, and back up to 30,000. I've been dollar cost averaging for I don't even know how long it is, like 2021. So like just set that thing up, let it ride. We're up 88% from last November. So I was in the hole, like it kind of sucked, but I had conviction. Like it really takes education to withstand those drops because of all Bitcoin is extremely volatile. It's brand new. 0.2% of the world use this thing, right? I think the total like value in it's like 500 billion. That is nothing. Gold is 10 trillion. That's like 20 times the size
Jesus
of
Christ.
Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin's just teeny tiny. It's going to have wild price swings. Like these next 2 years, I fully expect Bitcoin to go well above six figures and crash back down below. Like you have to understand it and know where it's going to withstand like that volatility, or just ignore it. Check back in 10 years and you'll be sitting very pretty.
And every time there's that price crash, you're going to see, the media headlines like Bitcoin's dead or, very scary stuff. And people sell. And that's why people buy high during a nice chunky bull run when everyone's like, let's go, dude, the rocket ship. And then the crash happens and then they sell low. And it's funny, but it's an emotional thing. And the more you can remove emotion and just believe in what this tool actually is. And, if you zoom out, like this is 14 years old. It's infant. It's an infant currency. Like it's 14 years old. And every cycle, has like a peak and a valley. But the valleys we have now, right? The valley we had in November with the latest headlines of it's dead, doom and gloom, was $16,000. In 2017, when Bitcoin hit $16,000, everybody lost their minds about we never thought it would get this big. So like it's all perspective, but yes, when a currency is this young and when the market cap is so small still, there is a lot of volatility. In time, that will smooth out. But yeah, like the widespread belief, if you look at this, there's a bull run every 4 years or so. Our last one was 2021. I strongly believe we will see one in 2025. And I strongly believe that will put us above six figures, somewhere between 100 and 250,000 per coin.
Dude,
and I think
we could probably go over this for like another hour. I don't know.
We could. I gotta pee. I gotta pee. So yeah,
same.
This has been awesome, Tyler. What do you think, dude? Like, how are you feeling about this, bro? Like, has this been helpful? Like, I'm sure you came into this thinking Bitcoin was just like a way to invest and try and take your shot at getting a Lambo or whatever, right?
Yeah. Total 180. I mean, I literally could not have given more of a shit about Bitcoin. I literally could, or less of a shit, I guess, whatever the phrase is. I couldn't have given less of a shit. and also to me, like just in terms of saving money at all, I don't even see the value in a savings account, right? Because for me, it's like the money's in the account. Either it's there or it's not. Like I don't like it doesn't matter if I put it in a savings account or not. But now like just the idea of saying making a statement that says I don't want my money to be fucked with by anyone but me. I think that to me there's something that strongly resonates with me in that assertion, that statement, and that's what makes me want. I mean, fuck it, I'm down to like set it up. I want to set it up. If I put, even if it's $1 a day or something like that, I'm putting in there. I don't care, because I want to at least have something that's not going to be worth nothing overnight.
Yeah.
Love it, man.
It's amazing. And you get into dire straits and you need to spend that US dollar, those US dollars on something, you pull it right back out, right? So it's not, but yeah, dude, that's awesome. Swan Bitcoin. And with that, Alec,
Yeah, I
do we
think
want to?
Yeah, I think we'll do a couple things. Like, I'd love to set you up with some Bitcoin. I mean, we don't have to do it on the show, but I'll get you to, just download a software wallet on your phone so you can kind of get comfortable with like how it works. We can kind of stop recording and do that after. And I think Jason, a good thing we may want to do is he actually said the words directly.
I
This
want
guy
to set it
Jason
up.
Williams wrote this book called Hard Money You Can't Fuck With. I think you would absolutely love that. And did you finish it yet, Jason?
No, I'm close. It is, yeah, dude, it's an incredible read. It's an incredible read. There's a lot of Bitcoin literature out there, ranging from the very in-depth technical, to be honest. Some of it's kind of dry. Some of it goes into the history of monies, and it's like, I need to know this stuff, but it's not super fun to listen to while I'm exercising or whatever. And Jason's book is fucking awesome. Like it's in the tone of this conversation. You'd really love it, dude, if you want to download it on Audible or whatever. It's fantastic. What I'm going to propose is we all convene again at some point in the near future, and we help Tyler set up his DCA with Swan, and we do that on the show so we can help folks who think that they need to go buy Bitcoin in very large chunks of money that's very noticeable or relieve big gaping holes in their bank account. We could show them how to do this in a very easy, palatable way. Tyler, what do you think?
Dude, I would love that. I mean, I'm totally game for it. If you guys are open to having me back and like just walk me through it, tell me what I need to do. Fuck it. Yeah, dude, I'll do it right there on the spot. That'd be awesome.
Love it.
Awesome. Let's do it. 100%. Well, thanks so much, Tyler, for jumping on. We'll wrap this up. Hope all y'all found this episode extremely valuable. It's super cool just to get, people's perspectives that are just kind of starting to learn about Bitcoin. Because, like we mentioned time and time again on this episode, it's often thought about as something I can just get rich off of, and how can I make more money with it, when that's the farthest thing from the truth. Like, Bitcoin is the money. You want to change the money you're using because of the different aspects of it, right? It cannot be controlled. It cannot be inflated. It cannot, you are your own bake. Your money's not being manipulated and loaned out and all this other crap. It's a complete opt out from our existing system. So stay tuned for the next episode. We're going to bring Tyler back on for sure. We're going to get him his dollar cost average set up so he can start saving in Bitcoin. And I promise I'm going to have him download a wallet, and I'm going to shoot him, at least $5 or so worth of Bitcoin for joining us today, because I really appreciate his time. Thanks so much, everybody, and we'll catch you on the next episode. See ya.